When my son told me we needed to discuss my excessive spending, I stayed quiet. But what I discovered next made me take action that would leave him begging for mercy. I'm grateful you're here to listen to my story. Stay with me until the end and comment which country you're watching from so I can see how far this reaches. At 70 years old, I thought I'd seen every shade of disappointment a parent could experience. I was wrong. Standing in my son Marcus's marble-floored kitchen that Tuesday afternoon, watching him and his girlfriend Sienna exchange meaningful glances, I realized there were still new ways for your children to break your heart. "Mom, we need to talk about your financial situation," Marcus said, gesturing for me to sit at his glass dining table. He didn't offer me tea, didn't ask how my drive over had been, just straight to business. Sienna perched on the arm of his chair, her perfectly manicured hand resting on his shoulder. She was 28, blonde, and wore athleisure that cost more than my monthly grocery budget. They'd been together for 8 months, and in that time, I'd watched my relationship with my son steadily deteriorate. "What about my finances?" I asked carefully, folding my hands in my lap. Marcus pulled out his tablet, swiping through what appeared to be spreadsheets. "I've been reviewing your accounts, and frankly, I'm concerned. Your spending has gotten out of control." My spending? I lived in a modest 2-bedroom condo in Riverside Heights. I drove a 12-year-old sedan. My biggest luxuries were my weekly book club meetings and the occasional lunch with my friend Dorothy. "Marcus, I don't understand. I live within my means." "Do you?" Sienna interjected, leaning forward with fake concern painted on her face. "Because the numbers tell a different story, Eleanor." I bristled at her use of my first name, as if we were peers rather than a woman old enough to be her grandmother and her boyfriend's paramour. "What numbers?" I asked. Marcus turned the tablet toward me. "You spent $300 at Greenfield Nursery last month, $200 at that boutique on Main Street. There's a $75 charge at a spa. The nursery purchase was for plants for my balcony garden. The boutique was for your sister Jennifer's birthday gift. And the spa was a pedicure that Dorothy bought me as a gift certificate 6 months ago." "That's not the point," Marcus said, his jaw tightening. "The point is, you're spending money you should be saving. What happens when you need assisted living, when you need medical care?" "I have savings. I have insurance. I've been careful." "Not careful enough," Sienna said softly, her voice dripping with false sweetness. "Marcus and I have been discussing this, and we think it's time for some changes. For your own good." For my own good. The words my son had used when he was 5 and I wouldn't let him eat candy for breakfast. What kind of changes? My voice sounded small, even to my own ears. Marcus exchanged another look with Sienna before continuing. "We think you should move in with us. We have the guest house in the back, completely separate. You'd have your own space, but we could keep an eye on things." My stomach dropped. "Keep an eye on things?" "On your spending, your health, your daily activities," Sienna clarified. "It would be so much easier if we could help you manage everything. You wouldn't have to worry about bills or budgets anymore." "I don't worry about those things now," I said, my voice shaking slightly. "I've managed my own finances for 50 years. "And that's exactly the problem, Mom." Marcus leaned forward, his expression turning stern. "You're 70. You're not getting any younger. We need to start making smart decisions before it's too late." Before it's too late. As if I were already mentally incompetent, already incapable of basic adult functions. "I appreciate your concern," I said carefully, "but I'm perfectly capable of managing my own life. I don't need." "It's not really a suggestion," Marcus said flatly. "Sienna and I have already discussed this with a lawyer. Given your age and some of the spending patterns we've seen, we could make a case for conservatorship if necessary." The word hit me like a slap. Conservatorship. Legal control over my finances, my decisions, my life? "You're threatening to take away my legal rights?" I could barely process what I was hearing. "We're trying to protect you," Sienna said, reaching out as if to pat my hand. I pulled away before she could touch me. "Sometimes people don't know what's best for themselves. That's when family needs to step in." Family? This woman who'd been dating my son for less than a year was talking about family responsibility? "Marcus," I said, looking directly at my son, "are you serious about this?" He didn't meet my eyes. "It's for your own good, Mom." You can move into the guest house by the end of the month. We'll help you downsize, get rid of unnecessary expenses. Your condo can be sold. The equity will help with your future care needs. My home? You want me to sell my home? It's too much space for one person, Sienna said reasonably, and the maintenance costs alone are wasteful. Think of how much you'd save. I stood up slowly, my legs trembling. I need to think about this. There's nothing to think about, Marcus said, his voice hardening. This is happening, Mom. Either you cooperate or we go the legal route. Your choice. I looked at my son, my firstborn, the child I'd raised alone after his father died when he was 8. The boy I'd worked 2 jobs to put through college. The man I'd helped with his down payment on this very house just 3 years ago. He looked back at me with cold determination, and I realized I was looking at a stranger. I'll need some time, I whispered. You have until Friday to decide, Marcus said, already turning back to his tablet. We'll need an answer by then. Sienna walked me to the door, her hand hovering near my elbow as if I might fall. This is really for the best, Eleanor, she said softly. You'll see. Once you're settled in the guest house and we have everything organized, you'll wonder why you didn't do this sooner. I drove home in a daze, my hands gripping the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles turned white. When I finally made it inside my condo, I collapsed onto my sofa and let the tears come. My son wanted to control my life, to take away my home, my independence, my dignity. And he was using my age as a weapon against me, as if turning 70 meant I'd suddenly become incompetent. But it was the way Sienna had smiled at me as I left that haunted me most. That satisfied, victorious smile that suggested this had been her idea all along. I sat there in my living room, surrounded by 40 years of memories, and realized that something was very wrong with this picture. Marcus had never cared about my finances before. He'd never questioned my spending or suggested I needed supervision. Not until Sienna. And that's when I noticed something sitting on my coffee table. A piece of mail I'd picked up on my way out that morning but hadn't opened yet. It was from Riverside Community Bank, where I'd kept my accounts for 30 years. With shaking hands, I opened the envelope. It was a courtesy notice about joint account holders being added to customer accounts. But I hadn't added any joint account holders. My blood ran cold as I read the details. According to this notice, Marcus had been added as a joint holder on my primary checking account 3 weeks ago. 3 weeks ago, right around the time he and Sienna had started their sudden campaign of concern about my well-being. I grabbed my laptop and logged into my online banking, my heart pounding. And there, in my transaction history, I saw something that made my stomach turn. Transfers. Multiple transfers from my account to an account I didn't recognize. Small amounts at first, $200 here, $300 there, but they'd been getting larger over the past 2 weeks. Someone with access to my account was stealing from me, and I had a terrible feeling I knew exactly who it was. I didn't sleep that night. How could I? Every time I closed my eyes, I saw those bank transactions scrolling across my computer screen. $200, $350, $500, $650, $800, $1,000. Each transfer a theft. Each theft a betrayal. By the time dawn broke through my bedroom curtains, painting the walls in shades of pale gray and rose, I'd made a decision. I wasn't going to confront Dashiell immediately. I wasn't going to call him in anger or accusation. Instead, I was going to do what I had always done when faced with a problem. Gather information, understand the full situation, and then act strategically. I made coffee in my small kitchen, the familiar ritual helping to steady my nerves. The morning was crisp and cool, typical for late October in this part of the country. Through my kitchen window, I could see Mrs. Chen from Unit 3B doing her morning Tai Chi exercises in the common area, her movements slow and graceful. Mr. Patterson was walking his golden retriever, Biscuit, along the path that circled the pond. Normal life continuing as if my world hadn't just tilted on its axis. I sat at my kitchen table with my coffee and a notebook. I'd always been a paper and pen person, finding that writing things down helped me think more clearly, and began to make a list of what I knew and what I needed to find out. What I knew. Dashiell had been added as a joint account holder to my checking account 3 weeks ago. Someone had forged my signature on the authorization form. $3,500 had been transferred out of my account in 6 weekly installments. The transfers were going to an account ending in 7743. Dashiell and Sienna were pressuring me to move into their guest house and give up control of my finances. They were threatening conservatorship if I didn't comply. What I needed to find out. Whose account was receiving the transferred money? Were there other accounts I didn't know about that Dashiell had access to? How much money was really at stake? Was Sienna directly involved, or was she just encouraging Dashiell? Did my other children know anything about this? What were my legal options? I sipped my coffee and stared at the list. The most pressing question was the identity of that account ending in 7743. I needed to call the bank, but I had to be careful. If Dashiell had set up alerts on the account, any inquiry from me might tip him off that I was onto the theft. At exactly 9 o'clock, when I knew the bank would open, I dialed the customer service number for Thornbury Regional Bank. My hands were steadier than they had been last night, fortified by caffeine and a sense of purpose. Thornbury Regional Bank, this is Marcus. How may I help you today? Good morning, Marcus. This is Rosemary Westbrook. I have a checking account with you, and I received a notice yesterday about changes to my account. I'm calling to verify some information. Of course, Mrs. Westbrook. I'll need to verify your identity first. Can you provide me with your account number and the last 4 digits of your Social Security number? I provided the information along with my date of birth and mother's maiden name. The security questions felt endless, but finally, Marcus confirmed my identity.
Thank you, Mrs. Westbrook. What questions do you have about your account? The notice said that a joint account holder was added 3 weeks ago. I wanted to confirm the details of that change. I heard typing on the other end. Yes, I see that here. Dashiell Westbrook was added as a joint account holder on October 2nd. The authorization form was processed at our Belmont Ridge branch. Can you tell me, was I present when this was processed? More typing. Let me check the processing notes. No, according to this, Mr. Westbrook came in alone with a signed authorization form. That's standard procedure when a joint holder is added to an account for an elderly parent. We accept notarized authorization forms to make things easier for families. Notarized. My forgery had apparently been notarized. I felt sick. I see. And can you tell me if there have been any transfers out of my account recently? Certainly. Let me pull up your transaction history. A pause. Yes, there have been 6 transfers over the past 6 weeks, ranging from $200 to $1,000, all to the same external account. Can you tell me whose account that is? I'm sorry, Mrs. Westbrook, but for privacy reasons, I can only see that it's an account at Riverside Community Bank. I don't have access to the account holder's name. But you can see the account number. Yes, the account number is visible on our end for reconciliation purposes. The account is number 7743-9821-4456. I wrote it down carefully. Thank you. One more question. Are there alerts set up on this account? Would anyone be notified if I called to ask questions? Another pause. Let me check your alert settings. Yes, it looks like email alerts were recently added. Anytime there's an inquiry about the account, a login to online banking, or a transaction over $500, an email is sent to, he paused, to an email address ending in s.laurent@techvista.com. Sienna Laurent. My suspicions were confirmed. She was directly involved. Thank you, Marcus. You've been very helpful. Is there anything else I can help you with today, Mrs. Westbrook? Actually, yes. I'd like to know about removing a joint account holder from my account. Certainly. That would require you to come into a branch in person with valid identification. However, I should mention that if there's been any dispute or concern about the joint account holder's activity, we recommend consulting with a lawyer first. Joint account holders have full legal access to all funds, and removing them can sometimes trigger legal complications. I understand. Thank you. I hung up and sat back in my chair, my mind racing. Sienna's email was receiving alerts about my account. That meant she knew I'd just called the bank. She probably knew within minutes of any inquiry I made. I had to assume that right now, at this very moment, Sienna was looking at an email notification about my phone call to the bank, which meant I had very little time before Deshelle would be calling me, trying to manage the situation. I needed to move faster. I grabbed my phone and called my daughter, Jennifer. She lived about 2 hours away in the city of Crestview, where she worked as a pediatric nurse. We talked every few days, usually about her kids, Timothy, who was 6, and little Emma, who just turned 3. "Mom, I was just thinking about you. How are you?" "I'm fine, sweetheart. Do you have a few minutes to talk? I need to ask you something." "Of course. I'm just doing laundry. Marcus took the kids to the park so I could catch up on household stuff. What's going on?" "Have you talked to Deshelle recently? Has he said anything to you about me?" There was a pause. "Actually, yes. He called me last week. It was kind of strange now that you mention it." My heart started beating faster. "What did he say?" "He asked me if I'd noticed anything concerning about you lately, whether you seemed forgetful or confused, whether you'd had any health problems. I told him you seemed fine to me. But he kept pushing. He wanted to know about your finances, whether you'd mentioned having trouble paying bills or managing money." "What did you tell him?" "I told him I had no idea about your finances because you've always been private about money stuff, and that's your right. I told him you seemed sharp as ever." "Why? What's this about, Mom?" I took a deep breath. "Jennifer, I need to tell you something, and I need you to hear me out completely before you react. Can you do that?" "You're scaring me. Are you sick? Is something wrong?" "I'm not sick, but something is very wrong." I spent the next 15 minutes telling her everything. The conversation at Deshelle's house, the conservatorship threat, the bank statements, the forged signature, the transfers to the mysterious account, Sienna's email alerts. Jennifer was silent for a long moment after I finished, then, "That son of a bitch." I was startled. Jennifer rarely swore. "You believe me?" "Of course I believe you. Why wouldn't I?" She sounded angry now. "Mom, I've been worried about Deshelle for months. Ever since he got involved with Sienna, he's been different, more concerned with appearances, with money, with status. Last Christmas, when we all got together at your place, he spent the entire time on his phone, and when I tried to talk to him about how rude that was, he told me I wouldn't understand because I'd settled for a simple life." He said that.
His exact words. Because Marcus is a high school teacher instead of an investment banker, apparently we're beneath Dashiell now. And Mom, there's something else I haven't told you. When we were leaving after Christmas dinner, I overheard Sienna talking to Dashiell in the parking lot. She said something about how your mother's condo is worth at least $300,000 and how that was sitting there doing nothing. My blood ran cold. They'd been planning this for months, possibly since they'd first gotten together. "Jennifer, I need your help. I need to find out whose account is receiving my money. Can you do something for me?" "Anything." "Call Riverside Community Bank. Tell them you're calling on behalf of your mother, Rosemary Westbrook, and that you need to verify information about a recent transfer. Give them that account number I found, 774398214456. See if they'll tell you who owns it. Won't they need your permission or something?" "Probably, but it's worth trying. If they push back, tell them you're concerned about elder financial abuse and you're trying to protect your mother. Sometimes that gets people to bend the rules a little." "Okay, I'll call right now and text you what I find out." "Mom, what are you going to do?" "I'm going to call your brother." "Dashiell?" "No, Christopher." Christopher was my youngest, 32 years old, and a criminal defense attorney in Thornbury. He was sharp, skeptical, and had never particularly liked Dashiell. Growing up, the two of them had been like oil and water. Dashiell always concerned with appearances and success, Christopher more interested in justice and fairness.
They'd grown apart as adults, communicating mostly through me. That's a good idea. Christopher will know what to do legally. Call me after you talk to him. I will. Jennifer, thank you for believing me. Mom, her voice was thick with emotion. You're the strongest, smartest woman I know. If you say Dashiell is stealing from you, then he's stealing from you, and we're going to stop him. After we hung up, I sat for a moment feeling some of the weight lift from my chest. I wasn't alone in this. I had Jennifer on my side. I dialed Christopher's cell phone. He answered on the second ring, sounding distracted. Hey, Mom, can I call you back? I'm in the middle of reviewing a brief. Christopher, I need your help. It's urgent. His tone changed immediately. What's wrong? Are you okay? I'm not hurt, but I'm in trouble. Legal trouble. Or rather, someone is creating legal trouble for me. Tell me everything. I went through the story again, more concisely this time. Christopher listened without interrupting, and I could almost hear his legal mind processing the information. When he finished, he let out a low whistle. Mom, this is serious. What Dashiell is doing, the unauthorized account access, the forged signature, the threats of conservatorship, this could be criminal elder abuse, and the financial theft is definitely fraud. Can you help me? Absolutely. First thing, we need to document everything. Print out all those bank statements showing the transfers, keep that forged authorization form, don't delete any emails or text messages from Dashiell or Sienna. Second, I'm going to make some calls. I know a forensic accountant who specializes in elder financial abuse cases. We need to find out the full scope of what they've taken. There's more, Christopher. They're threatening to pursue conservatorship if I don't move into their guest house and let them control my finances. That's not going to happen. Conservatorship requires proof of incapacity, and you're clearly competent. But we need to be strategic about this. If you confront Dashiell directly right now, he'll lawyer up, and this becomes much more complicated. We need to build our case first. Jennifer is trying to find out whose account is receiving my money. Good. Once we know that, we can trace where the money is going. Mom, I have to ask, are you absolutely certain you want to pursue this? Dashiell is my brother. This could destroy our family. I thought about that for a long moment. Your brother is stealing from me and threatening to take away my legal rights. He's the one destroying this family. I'm just refusing to be a victim. Fair enough. I'll clear my schedule for this afternoon. Can you meet me at my office at 2? I'll be there. And Mom, don't respond to any calls or texts from Dashiell until we talk. If he reaches out, just ignore him for now. Understood. After we hung up, I felt marginally better. I had 2 of my 3 children on my side, and one of them was a lawyer who knew how to handle exactly this type of situation. My phone buzzed with a text message. It was from Jennifer. Called the bank. They wouldn't give me the account holder name, but said it's a joint account. 2 names on it. They did say one is male, one is female, both in their 30s. Dashiell and Sienna. The account receiving my money belonged to both of them. They were in this together. Before I could process that information, my phone rang. Dashiell's name appeared on the screen. I stared at it, remembering Christopher's advice not to answer, but part of me wanted to hear what Dashiell would say. Would he acknowledge that he knew I'd called the bank? Would he try to explain? Against my better judgment, I answered. Hi, Dashiell.
Mom? His voice was tight. I just got a notification that there was an inquiry about your bank account this morning. Did you call them? So he wasn't even going to pretend he didn't have alerts set up. Yes, I called. I received a notice about changes to my account and wanted to verify the information. What kind of changes? He was fishing, trying to figure out how much I knew. Why don't you tell me, Dashiell, since apparently you're listed as a joint account holder on my checking account? Something I don't recall authorizing. Silence. Then, Mom, we talked about this yesterday. You need help managing your finances. I had myself added to your account so I could help you. I was going to tell you, but I didn't want to worry you with the details. You forged my signature. I did not forge anything. You signed that form, Mom. You just don't remember because of your memory issues. That's exactly why we need to do this. You're forgetting things, making decisions, and then not remembering them. The gaslighting was so blatant, it took my breath away. Dashiell, I did not sign any form, and I don't have memory issues. Mom, please, let's not do this over the phone. Sienna and I can come over this evening, and we can talk about this calmly. We're on your side here. We're trying to help you. I don't need help. I need you to remove yourself from my bank account. His voice hardened. That's not going to happen. We've already discussed this. The conservatorship paperwork is ready to file if necessary. Don't make this difficult, Mom. Don't force us to take legal action. Is that a threat? It's a statement of fact. You have until Friday to make a decision about the guest house. I suggest you spend the next few days really thinking about what's best for everyone involved. Everyone involved. Or just what's best for you and Sienna. I'm not going to engage with this paranoia. Get some rest, Mom. We'll talk when you're thinking more clearly. He hung up before I could respond. I sat there, staring at my phone, anger rising like bile in my throat. He just gaslighted me, threatened me, and then dismissed my legitimate concerns as paranoia. And he'd done it so smoothly, so confidently, as if he'd been practicing. My phone buzzed again. A text from Dashiell. I'm worried about you, Mom. This kind of suspicious thinking is exactly what I've been concerned about. Please consider talking to a doctor about these memory and paranoia issues. He was creating a paper trail, documentation that I was exhibiting signs of mental incompetence. These texts could be used in a conservatorship hearing to show I was paranoid and forgetful. I forwarded the text to Christopher with a message, "See what I'm dealing with?" His response came immediately. Perfect. He's documenting his own manipulation. Save everything. See you at 2. I spent the rest of the morning doing exactly what Christopher had advised. Documenting everything. I printed out 6 months of bank statements from my online account, highlighting every suspicious transfer. I photographed the forged authorization form. I wrote out a detailed timeline of events, noting every conversation with Dashiell and every interaction with Sienna. At 11:30, my phone rang again. This time, it was a number I didn't recognize with a Thornberry area code. Hello? Mrs. Westbrook, this is Janet Reeves from Thornberry Elder Services. I received a call this morning from a concerned family member about your well-being. I was hoping we could schedule a time to meet and discuss some support services that might be helpful. My stomach dropped. Who called you? I'm not at liberty to say, but the individual expressed concerns about your ability to live independently and manage your own affairs. These calls aren't uncommon, and they're nothing to be worried about. We just want to make sure you have the support you need. I don't need support services. I'm perfectly capable of living independently. I understand, Mrs. Westbrook, but when we receive concerns from family members, we're required to follow up. It's just a wellness check. If everything is fine, then we document that and close the case. But we do need to complete the assessment. This was Dashiell's doing. He was building a case, getting official agencies involved to document concerns about my competency. When would you like to meet? I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. Would tomorrow morning work? I could come to your home around 10. Tomorrow is fine, but I'd like to have my attorney present. There was a pause. That's certainly your right, Mrs. Westbrook. May I ask why you feel you need legal representation for a simple wellness check? Because I have reason to believe this isn't actually about my well-being. It's about my son trying to establish grounds for legal conservatorship. Another pause, longer this time. I see. Mrs. Westbrook, if you believe you're being exploited or manipulated by a family member, we have resources that can help. Financial elder abuse is a serious matter. I'm aware, and I'm already taking steps to address it. But yes, I would appreciate any resources you can provide. I'll bring some information tomorrow. And Mrs. Westbrook, having an attorney present is actually a good idea. It shows you're taking your rights seriously.
After I hung up, I texted Christopher about the elder services visit. His response, "I'll be there. This is actually good. We can use their assessment to show you're competent and that Dashiell's concerns are unfounded." At 1:45, I drove to Christopher's office in downtown Thornbury. His firm, Morrison and Chen, occupied the third floor of a historic building that had been beautifully renovated. The receptionist, a young woman named Amanda, greeted me warmly.
Mrs. Westbrook, Christopher said to send you right back. He's in conference room B. I found Christopher waiting with a woman I didn't recognize. She was about 50, with short gray hair and sharp, intelligent eyes. Mom, this is Patricia Hartwell. She's the forensic accountant I told you about. Patricia stood and shook my hand firmly. Mrs. Westbrook, Christopher has briefed me on your situation. I've worked on dozens of elder financial abuse cases, and I have to say, what your son is doing follows a very typical pattern. We sat down and I walked them through everything again. This time with Patricia taking detailed notes and asking specific questions about my finances, my accounts, and my assets. How much are we talking about in total? Patricia asked. All accounts, investments, property equity? I did some mental calculations. My condo is probably worth around $320,000, and I have about $180,000 in mortgage left. So roughly $140,000 in equity. I have about $85,000 in my 401k from my years working at the medical practice. My checking and savings combined have about $47,000. And I have a small investment account, maybe $30,000. Patricia was writing this down. So we're looking at approximately $302,000 in total assets. That's a significant amount of money, more than enough to motivate this kind of scheme. Scheme, I repeated. That's really what this is. A scheme to steal my money? I'm afraid so, Patricia said gently. The pattern is textbook. First, they isolate you emotionally, then they gain access to your accounts, then they begin small transfers that gradually increase. Simultaneously, they build a narrative about your incompetence, the forgetfulness, the spending concerns, the need for supervision. They create documentation through agencies like elder services, and finally, they push for legal control through conservatorship or power of attorney. How long does this usually take? From start to finish? Usually 6 months to a year. But it sounds like your son accelerated the timeline. The engagement to Sienna might have created urgency. Perhaps they want money for the wedding, or a house, or to maintain a certain lifestyle. Christopher leaned forward. Mom, Patricia needs full access to your financial records, all of them. We need to see if there are other accounts or assets that Dashiell might have access that you don't know about. How would he access accounts I don't know about? Identity theft. It's not uncommon in these cases. If he has your social security number, date of birth, and mother's maiden name, information most children know about their parents, he could potentially open credit cards or lines of credit in your name. I felt sick. How do we check for that? I'll call your credit report. That will show us any accounts or credit inquiries made in your name. Patricia pulled out a form. I need you to sign this authorization so I can access your financial information legally. I signed, my hand shaking slightly. Okay, Christopher said. Here's the plan. Patricia is going to spend the next 48 hours doing a complete financial investigation. Tomorrow morning, I'll be with you when Elder Services comes. We're going to demonstrate that you're completely competent and that these concerns are manufactured. And then, once we have the full picture of what Dashiell has done, we're going to decide whether to pursue this criminally or handle it privately. What's the difference? Criminal prosecution means police, courts, potentially jail time for Dashiell. Private resolution means we confront him with the evidence, recover the money, and he agrees to leave you alone going forward. Both options have pros and cons. I want my money back, I said firmly. And I want to make sure he can never do this to me again, or to anyone else. Christopher and Patricia exchanged a look. Then we build the strongest case possible, Christopher said. And we make sure Dashiell understands that he's not dealing with a vulnerable elderly woman. He's dealing with someone who knows exactly what he's doing and isn't going to tolerate it.
I left Christopher's office 2 hours later with a folder full of documents to sign and a plan of action. For the first time since this nightmare began, I felt like I was taking control of the situation rather than being controlled by it. As I walked to my car, my phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "Mrs. Westbrook, this is Sienna. Dashiell is very worried about you. The way you spoke to him today was concerning. We think you should see a doctor. We've made an appointment for you with Dr. Harrison at Thornbury Medical for Thursday morning at 9:30. I'll pick you up." They were still pushing, still trying to establish their narrative of my incompetence. I forwarded the text to Christopher and typed out a response to Sienna. "I will not be attending any appointments you've made without my knowledge. Do not contact me again." Her response came immediately. "This attitude is exactly what we're worried about. You're not thinking clearly. We're trying to help you." I didn't respond. Instead, I got in my car and drove home, my mind already working through everything I'd learned today. Dashiell and Sienna had been planning this for months. They'd forged documents, gained access to my accounts, started stealing my money, and were now trying to gaslight me into believing I was incompetent so they could take legal control of everything I owned. But they'd made one critical mistake. They'd underestimated me. And by the time I was done, they were going to regret that more than anything else they'd done. Tomorrow morning, Elder Services would come and find me sharp, prepared, and represented by an attorney. In 48 hours, I'd have a complete accounting of every dollar they'd stolen. And then we'd see who ended up in control of this situation. I was 70 years old, but I wasn't finished yet. Not by a long shot.
Wednesday morning arrived with unseasonably warm weather, the kind of Indian summer day that felt borrowed from September. I was awake by 5:30, unable to sleep, my mind churning through everything that would happen today. The Elder Services visit at 10. Christopher would be here by 9:45 to prepare me. And somewhere in the background, Patricia Hartwell was pulling apart my financial life thread by thread, looking for evidence of how deeply Dashiell's theft had penetrated. I made coffee and stood at my kitchen window, watching the sky lighten from deep purple to soft pink. Mrs. Chen was already out doing her Tai Chi, her movements fluid and meditative. I envied her peace. My own body felt coiled tight, every muscle tense with anticipation. My phone buzzed at 6:15. A text from Patricia. "Found something. Call me when you're up." My hands shook as I dialed her number. She answered immediately. "Rosemary, I've been up all night working on your case. I need to walk you through what I've found before the Elder Services visit." "What is it?" "It's worse than we thought. Can you access your email right now? I'm sending you a secure document." I opened my laptop and pulled up my email. A message from Patricia appeared with a password-protected PDF attachment. She gave me the password and I opened the file. What I saw made my stomach drop. Patricia had created a comprehensive spreadsheet showing not just the transfers I'd already discovered, but dozens more I hadn't known about. There were withdrawals from my savings account, small amounts, $50 here, $75 there, starting 4 months ago. There were charges on a credit card I'd barely used, suddenly showing activity at expensive restaurants and boutiques in Belmont Ridge. "How much?" I whispered. "Total? Including the transfers, the cash withdrawals, and the credit card charges, we're looking at approximately $8,700 stolen over the past 4 months. I felt dizzy. $8,700? And Rosemary, there's more. I pulled your credit report. Someone opened a department store credit card in your name 2 months ago. There's a balance of $3,400 on it. The billing address is listed as Dashiell's house in Belmont Ridge. A credit card I didn't open? That's identity theft, which is a federal crime. The charges on the card are all at high-end stores. Women's clothing from Nordstrom, jewelry from Cartier, spa services at some place called Azure Retreat. Based on the purchase categories, I'd say Sienna has been using this card. My hands were trembling so badly I had to set down my coffee cup. $12,000? They've stolen $12,000 from me? That's what I can document so far. Rosemary, I'm still digging. There's a pattern of activity that suggests this might go back further than 4 months.
Your savings account shows some irregular withdrawals going back almost a year, but they're small enough that you might not have noticed. $30 here, $50 there. If those are also theft, we could be looking at $15,000 to $20,000 total. $20,000? A year's worth of my pension? The equivalent of 6 months of my living expenses, money I'd saved carefully over decades of work. What do I do? My voice sounded small, defeated. You do exactly what you're already doing. You stay strong, you let Elder Services assess you and see that you're perfectly competent. You let Christopher and me build the case, and then we take everything we found and we make Dashiell and Sienna face consequences. Can we prove it was them? The transfers and withdrawals from accounts where Dashiell is a joint holder? Absolutely. The credit card in your name? That's trickier, but the billing address being his house is damning. The fact that the charges align with Sienna's social media posts, I've been checking her Instagram, and she posted pictures of herself wearing Cartier jewelry 3 weeks ago, the same week that card was used at Cartier. That builds a circumstantial case. Her Instagram is public? She has 2 accounts, one private, one public. The public one is full of lifestyle posts, blessed life captions with pictures of expensive things. I'm documenting all of it, every post that shows items purchased with your stolen money. After we hung up, I sat at my kitchen table with Patricia's report in front of me, feeling waves of emotion I couldn't quite name. Rage? Yes. Betrayal? Absolutely. But also something like grief. The son I'd raised, the boy who'd once made me Mother's Day cards with crayon drawings and misspelled words, was a thief. He'd looked me in the eye and lied. He'd forged my signature, he'd manipulated systems meant to protect elderly people, and turned them into weapons against me. And Sienna, this woman I barely knew, who'd smiled at me with false sweetness while planning to steal everything I had, was wearing jewelry purchased with my money, posting pictures of it on social media like a trophy. At 9:45, Christopher arrived, carrying a leather briefcase and wearing his court attire, a sharp navy suit that made him look older than his 32 years. "How are you holding up, Mom?" Patricia called, "It's worse than we thought." I showed him the report. Christopher read through it silently, his jaw tightening. When he looked up, his eyes were cold with anger. "They opened a credit card in your name. That's a felony. Can we prove Sienna did it? The billing address helps, the purchase pattern helps, but we'll need more. Patricia's on it." Okay, let's prepare for this Elder Services visit. Janet Reeves is going to ask you questions about your daily life, your ability to manage your affairs, your mental state. She's required to assess whether you're at risk. What if Dashiell has already poisoned her against me?
Then we document that bias and we challenge it. But Rosemary, I've worked with Elder Services before. The people who do that job care about protecting vulnerable people, not enabling financial abuse. If you're clear, coherent, and informed about your own life, she's going to see that. We spent the next 15 minutes doing a practice run. Christopher asked me questions about my daily routine, my finances, my medical history, my social activities. I answered each one clearly and in detail. I showed him my calendar, where I tracked appointments and activities. I showed him my budget spreadsheet, where I'd tracked every dollar of income and expenses for the past 5 years. I showed him my medication list, just blood pressure medication and a vitamin D supplement, and explained when and why I took each one. "You're more organized than most 30-year-olds I know," Christopher said with approval. "There's no way anyone can look at this and think you're incompetent." At exactly 10 o'clock, the doorbell rang. Janet Reeves was a tall woman in her 50s with kind eyes and an air of professional competence. She wore simple clothing, slacks and a cardigan, and carried a well-worn leather folder. "Mrs. Westbrook, thank you for meeting with me. I'm Janet Reeves from Thornbury Elder Services." She noticed Christopher. "And you are?" "Christopher Westbrook, Mrs. Westbrook's son and attorney." Janet's eyebrows rose slightly. "I see. Mrs. Westbrook, you understand this is just an informal wellness check. You're not under investigation or in any legal trouble." "I understand," I said calmly. "But I also understand that my other son, Dashiell, contacted you with concerns about my competency. Since he's currently attempting to gain control of my finances through questionable means,
I felt it was appropriate to have legal representation present. Janet sat down on my sofa, her expression thoughtful. I appreciate your directness. Why don't you tell me what's going on from your perspective? I spent the next 20 minutes walking her through everything: the confrontation at Dashiell's house, the forged authorization form, the stolen money, the threats of conservatorship. Christopher occasionally interjected with legal clarifications, but mostly he let me tell my own story. Janet listened without interrupting, taking occasional notes. When she finished, she was quiet for a moment. Mrs. Westbrook, I need to ask you some standard assessment questions. Please understand, these aren't personal, they're just protocol. I understand. She pulled out a form. Can you tell me today's date? Wednesday, October 28th, 2024. Who is the current president? I answered correctly. She asked me to count backward from 100 by sevens, to name the last 5 presidents, to recall 3 words she'd given me 5 minutes earlier, to explain what I'd had for breakfast and what my plans were for tomorrow. I answered every question without hesitation. Can you show me how you manage your medications? I took her to my bathroom, where I had a weekly pill organizer. I take my blood pressure medication every morning with breakfast. I set a phone alarm to remind me. I also take vitamin D in the evening. My doctor recommended it after my last physical showed I was slightly deficient. When was your last physical? July 15th. Dr. Sandra Morrison at Thornbury Family Practice. She's been my doctor for 12 years. Janet made notes. And your finances? How do you manage bills and expenses? I showed her my system, the budget spreadsheet, the folder where I kept bills until they were paid, the checkbook where I recorded every transaction, the online banking app on my phone. I review my accounts twice a week. Every Wednesday and Sunday, I balance my checkbook monthly. I've never missed a payment or overdrafted my account. Do you drive? Yes, 2012 Honda Civic. I drive to the grocery store, to book club, to volunteer at the community kitchen, to doctor's appointments. I've never had an accident or a ticket. Janet sat back down, reviewing her notes. Mrs. Westbrook, I'll be honest with you. I see absolutely no evidence of cognitive decline or inability to manage your own affairs. You're articulate, organized, and clearly capable of independent living. Relief flooded through me. Thank you. However, Janet continued, the concerns your son raised are serious. When a family member contacts us with worries about financial exploitation or safety, we have to investigate. Can you tell me more about the forged signature? Christopher pulled out a folder. I have documentation here. The authorization form that was allegedly signed by my mother, adding Dashiell Westbrook as a joint account holder. We've compared the signature to my mother's actual signature on multiple documents. The differences are clear. He spread out several papers on the coffee table. My actual signature on my driver's license, on my lease, on medical forms, then the signature on the bank authorization form. Even to an untrained eye, the differences were visible. Janet studied them carefully. Have you reported this to the bank? Not yet, Christopher said. We're still gathering evidence, but we will be filing a police report for identity theft and fraud. Good, you should. Janet turned back to me. Mrs. Westbrook, I'm going to close this case with a finding that there are no concerns about your ability to live independently or manage your own affairs. However, I'm also going to note in my report that there are credible concerns about financial exploitation by a family member. I'm required to report that to Adult Protective Services. What does that mean? I asked.
It means they'll open an investigation into whether you're being financially abused. They have more resources than I do. They can work with law enforcement, subpoena records, that kind of thing. It might actually help your case. After Janet left, Christopher and I sat in my living room in silence for a moment. That went well, he finally said. Dashiell is going to be furious when he finds out she didn't find anything wrong with me. Good. Let him be furious. He overplayed his hand, Mom. He thought he could manufacture a case for your incompetency, but he can't. You're too sharp, too organized. Any judge who spent 5 minutes with you would see that. My phone rang. I glanced at the screen. Dashiell. Don't answer, Christopher advised. Let it go to voicemail. We watched it ring through. A minute later, a voicemail notification appeared. I played it on speaker. Mom, I just got a call from Elder Services saying they closed the case. They said you had a lawyer present, which makes you look paranoid and defensive. This is exactly the kind of concerning behavior I've been talking about. You need help, and you're refusing it out of stubbornness. Call me back. We need to talk about this. Christopher shook his head. Save that. It's more evidence of his manipulation tactics. He's not going to give up. No, he's not, which is why we need to move faster. Mom, Patricia is going to have her full report done by tomorrow morning. Once we have that, we need to decide how to proceed. Do we go to the police immediately? Do we confront Dashiell first and give him a chance to return the money? What do you want? I thought about that question. What did I want? Justice? Revenge? My money back? To never see my son again? I want him to understand what he's done, I said slowly. I want him to look me in the eye and admit that he stole from me, that he lied to me, that he tried to take away my freedom. And then I want him to face consequences. Legal consequences? If that's what it takes. Christopher nodded. Okay, then here's what I suggest. We wait for Patricia's full report. We go to the police and file charges for identity theft and fraud. We let them investigate. And then when they arrest him, because they will arrest him, Mom, the evidence is overwhelming. He'll understand exactly how serious this is. He'll hate me. He already made his choice. He chose to steal from you. You're just choosing not to be a victim. After Christopher left, I tried to go about my normal day, but everything felt surreal. I went to the grocery store and found myself wondering if the yogurt I was buying had been purchased with money Dashiell hadn't stolen. I saw an elderly man struggling to load groceries into his car and wondered if he had children who would someday betray him the way mine had. When I got home, there was a car parked in front of my building that I didn't recognize, a silver Mercedes with Belmont Ridge dealer plates. My heart sank. I knew that car. As I pulled into my parking space, Sienna got out of the Mercedes and walked toward me. Rosemary, we need to talk. I grabbed my groceries from the trunk, not looking at her. I have nothing to say to you. Please, just 5 minutes. I'm trying to help. Help? You're trying to help by stealing my money? By opening credit cards in my name? Her face went pale. I don't know what you're talking about. Don't you? The Cartier jewelry you posted on Instagram, the spa treatments at Azure Retreat, the clothing from Nordstrom, all charged to a credit card opened in my name with your billing address. Sienna's composure cracked. You can't prove that. Actually, I can. I have a forensic accountant who's documented everything. Every dollar you and Dashiell have stolen, every forged signature, every illegal transfer. And it's all going to the police. She stepped closer, her voice dropping to something between a plea and a threat. Rosemary, you don't want to do this. Think about what you're doing to your family, to Dashiell's career, to your grandchildren's inheritance. My grandchildren don't have any inheritance because you're stealing it. We're not stealing. We're managing your money because you can't be trusted to do it yourself. You're old, Rosemary. You're forgetting things, making bad decisions. We're protecting you. Protecting me by forging documents and committing identity theft? Sienna's face hardened. You think you're so smart. You think you figured everything out, but you have no idea what you're dealing with. Dashiell has connections, lawyers, resources. If you try to fight this, you'll lose everything. Is that a threat? It's a reality check. You're a 70-year-old woman living alone in a condo. We're young, successful, connected. Who do you think will believe? I looked at this woman, this 28-year-old girl who thought youth and beauty made her invincible, and I felt something shift inside me. Not fear, not intimidation, just cold, clear certainty.
Get off my property, I said quietly, and tell Dashiell that if either of you contact me again, my next call is to the police. Sienna's lips curved into a cruel smile. Fine. But when you're sitting in a nursing home with nothing because you were too stubborn to accept help, don't say we didn't try to save you. She walked back to her Mercedes and drove away, tires squealing slightly on the turn. I stood in the parking lot shaking with adrenaline until Mrs. Chen appeared beside me. "Are you okay, Rosemary? I saw that woman. She seemed aggressive." "I'm fine, Helen. Just some family trouble." Mrs. Chen patted my arm. "Family trouble is the worst kind. But you're strong. I've seen you. You'll get through this."
Inside my condo, I put away the groceries with methodical precision, using the familiar task to calm my nerves. Then I called Christopher and told him about Sienna's visit. "She threatened you," he said flatly. "That's witness intimidation. Did anyone see or hear the conversation?" "Mrs. Chen saw her, but I don't know if she heard what was said." "Doesn't matter. The fact that Sienna came to your home after you told them not to contact you is harassment. I'm documenting this." "And Mom, this actually helps our case. It shows consciousness of guilt. If they were innocent, why would Sienna be trying to intimidate you?" "She said Dashiell has connections and lawyers that I'll lose if I fight." "Let him bring his lawyers. I guarantee you none of them will want to defend him once they see the evidence of identity theft and elder abuse. This isn't a civil dispute over money. This is criminal activity. No respectable lawyer is going to touch this." That night, I couldn't eat dinner. I tried reading, but the words swam on the page. I tried watching television, but I couldn't follow the plot. Finally, I just sat on my balcony as the sun set, watching the sky turn from gold to pink to purple to black. My phone buzzed repeatedly, texts from Dashiell that I didn't read, calls that I didn't answer. At one point, Jennifer called. "Mom, Dashiell just called me. He's furious. He said you're making false accusations and trying to destroy his life. He wanted me to talk sense into you." "What did you tell him?" "I told him that if he'd done what you said he did, then he deserves whatever consequences come his way. And then I told him not to call me again until he's ready to admit what he's done and apologize to you." "How did he take that?" "He hung up on me. Mom, he's scared. That's why he's lashing out. He knows he's caught." "I'm scared too, sweetheart." "I know, but you're not alone. You have me and Christopher, and we're going to get through this together." Thursday morning arrived with rain. Cold, steady rain that matched my mood. Patricia called at 8. "I have the final report. Rosemary, are you sitting down?" "Yes." "The total is $18,340. I closed my eyes. $18,340. More than a year's worth of pension. My emergency fund, completely depleted. Money I'd saved for medical emergencies, for home repairs, for the possibility of someday traveling to see my grandchildren more often. Here's the breakdown. $7,200 in direct transfers from your checking account, $2,500 in cash withdrawals from your savings, $5,240 in unauthorized charges on your existing credit card, and $3,400 on the fraudulent department store card opened in your name. The activity goes back 11 months, starting last December. Last December, right after Christmas. Yes, the first small withdrawal was on December 28th, just $50. Then nothing for 3 weeks. Then another $60. The amounts increased slowly over time. By September, when Dashiell was added as a joint account holder, the theft accelerated dramatically. Why December? What happened in December? I've been looking at Dashiell's financial records, public information through his business filings. In November, he made a significant investment in a commercial property development. Based on SEC filings, he put in $50,000. That would have been a substantial portion of his liquid assets. My guess, the theft started because he overextended himself financially and needed to supplement his income. And then he met Sienna. Her Instagram posts start in January. First picture of them together is dated January 14th. After that, the theft pattern changes.
It becomes more frequent, larger amounts. The department store card is opened in August, right after their engagement announcement. I think once Sienna entered the picture, she encouraged more aggressive theft to fund their lifestyle. Patricia continued, I'm sending you the complete report now. It includes documentation of every fraudulent transaction, copies of your forged signatures, screenshots of Sienna's social media posts showing items purchased with stolen money, and a legal analysis of the crimes committed. This is enough to pursue criminal charges. What charges specifically? Identity theft, fraud, forgery, elder financial abuse, and potentially wire fraud, since money was transferred electronically across state lines. Depending on how the prosecutor wants to charge it, Dashiell could be looking at 5 to 10 years in prison. Sienna could face charges as an accessory, maybe 3 to 5 years. Prison. My son could go to prison. The thought made me feel sick, but I couldn't let that sway me. He'd made his choices. He'd stolen from his own mother. He'd forged documents, committed identity theft, and tried to gaslight me into thinking I was incompetent. Those were crimes. They had consequences. What do I do next? I asked. You take this report to the police. Christopher can go with you. You filed charges. And then you let the legal system do its job. After Patricia and I hung up, I sat with her report in front of me. 18 pages of detailed evidence. Financial records, timeline, legal analysis. Everything documented with the precision of someone who'd done this hundreds of times before. This was it. This was the moment where I had to decide, did I want to pursue this? Did I want to destroy my son's life? Because that's what this would do. Criminal charges would ruin his career. He'd lose his license to work in financial services. He'd lose his house, his reputation, possibly his freedom. But what alternative did I have? Let him steal from me? Let him take control of my life? Let him get away with crimes because he was my son?
I thought about what Sienna had said. When you're sitting in a nursing home with nothing because you were too stubborn to accept help, don't say we didn't try to save you. That was their plan. Steal everything I had, force me into poverty, and then point to that poverty as proof that I needed their help. It was diabolical in its simplicity. My phone rang. Christopher. Mom, Patricia sent me the report. This is airtight. We can file charges today. I know. But he's my son, Christopher. Your brother. There was a long silence. Then Christopher said something that changed everything. Mom, do you remember when I was in law school, when I was struggling with whether to go into corporate law or criminal defense? I remember. You told me something that I've never forgotten. You said, Christopher, the law isn't just about what's profitable or prestigious. It's about protecting people who can't protect themselves. It's about making sure the powerful can't abuse the vulnerable. Do you remember that? Yes. You're vulnerable, Mom. Not because you're incompetent or weak, you're neither of those things, but because Dashiell is your son and you loved him, and he used that love as a weapon against you. The law exists for exactly this situation, to protect mothers from sons who betray them, to protect elderly people from family members who exploit them. You taught me that justice matters. Now it's time to apply that lesson to our own family. He was right. I knew he was right. Okay, I said. Let's file charges. I'll pick you up in an hour. We're going to the Thornbury Police Department. We're going to talk to a detective, and we're going to make sure Dashiell faces consequences for what he's done. After we hung up, I got dressed carefully. A simple dress, comfortable shoes, minimal jewelry. I wanted to look like exactly what I was, a competent, capable woman who was the victim of a crime. I looked at myself in the mirror. 70 years old. Gray hair, lined face, reading glasses perched on my nose. But my eyes were clear, determined. Dashiell had seen an easy mark. An elderly mother he could manipulate and steal from, but he'd forgotten who raised him. He'd forgotten that I worked 2 jobs for years. that I managed a busy medical practice, that I negotiated with insurance companies and hospital administrators and pharmaceutical reps, that I raised 3 children alone and put them all through college. I wasn't weak. I wasn't a victim. I was a survivor. And I was about to show my son exactly what that meant. Christopher arrived at 10. We drove to the police station in silence, both lost in our own thoughts. The Thornbury Police Department was in a modern building downtown, all glass and steel. Inside, Christopher approached the front desk. "We need to speak with someone about filing charges for elder financial abuse and identity theft." The officer at the desk looked up. "I'll get a detective. Please have a seat." 10 minutes later, a woman in her 40s approached us. She had short, dark hair and sharp, intelligent eyes. "I'm Detective Maria Santos. You're here to report elder abuse?" "Yes," Christopher said. "This is my mother, Rosemary Westbrook. She's the victim of financial exploitation by a family member." Detective Santos led us to a small interview room. "Tell me everything." And I did. For the 3rd time in as many days, I told my story. But this time was different. This time, it wasn't to a social worker or a lawyer. This time, it was to someone who could do something about it. Detective Santos listened intently, occasionally asking clarifying questions. When I finished, she reviewed the report Patricia had prepared. "This is very thorough. Your forensic accountant did excellent work. Mrs. Westbrook, I need to be clear with you about what happens next. If we pursue charges, this becomes an official criminal investigation. Your son will be arrested. His house may be searched. His bank accounts may be frozen. This will be public record. Are you prepared for that?" "Yes," I said firmly. "And you understand that if he's convicted, he could face significant prison time?" "I understand." "Okay. I'm going to open a case file. We'll need to interview you formally, get your statement on record. We'll need to seize these financial documents as evidence, and then we'll start building a case for the prosecutor's office." "How long will this take?" Christopher asked. "Depends on how cooperative the suspect is. If he admits to the theft, we could have charges filed within a week. If he fights it, could be several months of investigation. But with this level of documentation," she tapped Patricia's report, "I don't see how he can dispute it." We spent the next 2 hours at the police station. I gave a formal statement, signed documents, provided copies of everything. Detective Santos was professional, thorough, and surprisingly kind. "Mrs. Westbrook, I've worked dozens of these cases. Elder financial abuse is more common than people realize, and it's almost always family members. You're doing the right thing. These crimes depend on victims staying silent out of shame or family loyalty. By coming forward, you're protecting not just yourself, but potentially other people your son might victimize." As Christopher and I left the police station, I felt something I hadn't expected. Relief. The decision was made. The wheels were in motion. Whatever happened next, I'd done what I needed to do.
How do you feel? Christopher asked as we got in his car. Like I just set fire to my own family. Dashiell set that fire, Mom. You're just refusing to burn in it. My phone rang as we pulled out of the parking lot. Dashiell's name on the screen. Should I answer? I asked Christopher. Might as well. He doesn't know yet that we filed charges. I answered. Hello, Dashiell. Mom. His voice was tight with barely controlled anger. We need to talk, in person, today. About what? About your accusations, about elder services, about whatever lies you've been spreading. I'm coming to your place at 5. You're going to listen to me, and you're going to stop this nonsense. Don't come to my home. I don't want to see you. I'm not asking permission, Mom. I'm telling you. 5 o'clock. Be there. He hung up before I could respond. Christopher and I looked at each other. He's panicking, Christopher said. He knows he's losing control of the situation. What do I do if he shows up? You call the police, you don't let him in, you don't engage with him. His behavior is becoming erratic, and I don't want you alone with him.
You think he'd hurt me? I think he's desperate, and desperate people do unpredictable things. Christopher drove me home and insisted on coming inside to check my locks. He showed me how to use the security chain on my door. He programmed 911 into my speed dial. "I'll be 10 minutes away at my office," he said. "If he shows up, you call me immediately. Don't open the door, don't talk to him through the door. Just call 911 and then call me." After Christopher left, I sat in my quiet condo and waited for 5 o'clock, wondering what my son would do when he realized that his world was about to come crashing down around him. 5 o'clock came and went. I sat in my living room, phone in hand, watching the clock. 5:15, 5:30. Maybe Dashiell had changed his mind. Maybe he thought better of confronting me. At 5:45, there was a pounding on my door that made me jump. "Mom, open this door!" Dashiell's voice was loud enough that I knew my neighbors could hear. "I know you're in there. We need to talk." My hands shook as I dialed Christopher's number. He answered immediately. "He's here," I whispered. "He's pounding on the door." "Do not open it. I'm calling 911 right now. Stay on the line with me." "Mom, more pounding. Stop being ridiculous. Open the door or I'm coming in. I still have the emergency key you gave me, remember?" I'd forgotten about that. Years ago, I'd given all 3 of my children emergency keys to my condo in case something happened to me. I'd never thought to ask them back. "Christopher, he has a key." "Shit. Okay, go into your bedroom and lock the door. Right now." I hurried to my bedroom as I heard the sound of a key in the lock. The front door opened just as I closed my bedroom door and turned the lock. "Mom, where are you?" Dashiell's footsteps in my living room. "You can't hide from me. This is my mother's home and I have every right to be here." I sat on my bed, phone pressed to my ear, heart hammering. "Police are on their way," Christopher said. "ETA 3 minutes. Just stay quiet." Dashiell tried the bedroom doorknob. "Really? You're locking me out? I'm your son. I'm trying to help you and you're treating me like a criminal?" "That's because you are a criminal," I said through the door, my voice steadier than I felt. "You stole from me, you forged my signature, you committed identity theft." "I did no such thing. You're confused, Mom. You're imagining things. That's why you need help. That's why we need to—" "I filed a police report this morning, Dashiell. Detective Maria Santos has all the evidence. The transfers, the forged documents, the credit card you and Sienna opened in my name. All of it." Silence. A long, terrible silence. Then, "What did you do?" "I reported you for elder financial abuse and identity theft. The police are investigating. They're building a case to present to the prosecutor." "You stupid woman." His voice had changed, gone cold and venomous in a way I'd never heard before. "Do you have any idea what you've done? I could lose everything, my career, my license, my reputation, and for what? Some misunderstanding about money? $18,000 isn't a misunderstanding, it's theft. That money was for your own good. We were setting it aside for your care, for when you need assisted living or medical treatment. We were protecting your assets. By stealing them? We weren't stealing, we were managing. You're too old to understand modern financial planning. We were going to invest it, grow it, make sure you had enough when you really needed it." Even now, caught and facing consequences, he was lying, still trying to manipulate me. Then why did Sienna use the credit card to buy jewelry? Why were there charges at expensive restaurants and boutiques? That doesn't sound like careful financial management, Dashiell. That sounds like 2 people living beyond their means on money they stole from an elderly woman. You can't prove Sienna was involved. I can prove everything. I have a forensic accountant's report. I have screenshots of Sienna's Instagram showing her wearing the jewelry purchased with my money. I have bank records showing every transaction. You're done, Dashiell. I heard something hit the door. I think his fist. "If you don't drop these charges right now, you'll regret it. I'll make sure every doctor in this town knows you're having mental problems. I'll petition for conservatorship and I'll win. You'll spend the rest of your life in a state facility with nothing. No money, no freedom, nothing." Those threats don't work anymore. Elder Services already assessed me and found I'm perfectly competent.
Any judge who looks at the report will see your conservatorship petition for what it is: retaliation against someone who reported your crimes. In the distance, I heard sirens.
Dashiell heard them too. You called the police? On your own son? You broke into my home after I told you not to come here. Yes, I called the police. I have a key. You gave it to me. And I'm revoking that access right now. You're trespassing. The sirens were getting closer. I heard Dashiell's footsteps moving quickly through my condo, then the front door opening. Mom? Christopher's voice on the phone. The police are there. Don't come out until they clear the scene. I sat on my bed, shaking, until I heard a knock on my bedroom door. Mrs. Westbrook? This is Officer Taylor with Thornberry Police. It's safe to come out now. I opened the door to find 2 police officers in my living room. Through my front window, I could see Dashiell standing next to a police car in the parking lot, talking to another officer. Ma'am, your son says this is a misunderstanding. He says he has a key and permission to be here. He did have a key, an emergency key I gave him years ago, but I've asked him multiple times not to come to my home. He forced his way in today and threatened me. I want to press charges for trespassing and harassment. Officer Taylor exchanged a glance with his partner. Ma'am, we understand you filed a report this morning with Detective Santos about financial abuse? Yes. And your son is the subject of that investigation? Yes. Okay. We're going to document this incident. We'll add it to the case file. His behavior tonight, forcing entry and making threats, that's going to look very bad for him when this goes to trial. Trial? The word made it all feel suddenly real. With the evidence you've provided, the DA will almost certainly press charges. Your son will be arraigned, and unless he takes a plea deal, there will be a trial. This incident tonight shows a pattern of escalating behavior that prosecutors love. It demonstrates consciousness of guilt. After the police left, taking Dashiell's key with them and warning him to stay away from me, Christopher arrived. He found me sitting on my couch, still shaking. Mom, he sat beside me and put his arm around me. You did the right thing. Did I? He looked at me with such hate, Christopher, like he was my enemy instead of my mother. He made you his enemy when he decided to steal from you. You didn't do this to him, he did it to himself. Over the next 3 days, everything moved with frightening speed. Detective Santos called to tell me that based on the evidence and Dashiell's threatening behavior, the DA was fast-tracking the case. Dashiell was formally charged with elder financial abuse, identity theft in first degree, forgery, and wire fraud. His arraignment was set for the following Monday. Jennifer called every day, offering support. She told me that Dashiell had tried to call her, asking her to convince me to drop the charges. She'd refused. He kept saying you were ruining his life, Jennifer told me. He ruined his own life the moment he stole from you. I told him that I was ashamed to call him my brother. On Sunday, I received an unexpected visitor. Sienna. This time, she didn't look polished and confident. Her makeup was smeared, like she had been crying. Her clothes were rumpled. She looked young and scared and desperate. Please, she said when I opened the door, with the security chain on. Please, Rosemary, I need to talk to you. I have nothing to say to you. Dashiell's attorney says he could go to prison for 10 years. 10 years, Rosemary? That's his entire life. Then he shouldn't have committed crimes. It was me. The words burst out of her. It was my idea. The credit card, the expensive purchases, the engagement ring. Dashiell just wanted to help you, but I pushed him to take more. I'm the one who should be punished, not him. I stared at her through the crack in the door. Was this true? Or was this another manipulation? Sienna trying to take the fall to save Dashiell? If that's true, you should tell Detective Santos. Confess to what you did. I will. I'll tell them everything. But please, please, drop the charges against Dashiell. He's a good man who made a mistake because of me. A good man doesn't forge his mother's signature. A good man doesn't gaslight his mother about her mental competency. A good man doesn't threaten conservatorship to cover up theft. Dashiell made his own choices. Now he has to live with the consequences. He's sorry. He wants to apologize. Then he can apologize in court. I closed the door on her tears. Monday came. Christopher picked me up at 8 in the morning for Dashiell's arraignment. I'd dressed carefully, the same outfit I'd worn to the police station. Simple, dignified, competent. The courthouse was an imposing building in downtown Thornberry. Inside, it smelled like floor polish and old wood. Christopher guided me to the correct courtroom, and we took seats in the gallery. At 9:30, they brought Dashiell in. He was wearing a suit, probably the same one he'd worn to work 1,000 times, but his face was gray and drawn. When his eyes found me in the courtroom, I saw fear there. And something else. Regret, maybe. Or maybe just anger at being caught. The judge, a stern-looking woman in her 60s, reviewed the charges. Mr. Westbrook, you're charged with elder financial abuse, identity theft in first degree, forgery, wire fraud, and criminal harassment. How do you plead? Dashiell's lawyer leaned over to whisper to him, and then Dashiell said, in a voice I barely recognized, "Not guilty, Your Honor." The judge set bail at $50,000. She also issued a restraining order. Dashiell was to have no contact with me, direct or indirect. He was to stay at least 500 feet away from my home. As they led him away to process his bail, Dashiell looked at me one more time. His lips moved, and I thought maybe he was saying, "I'm sorry," or maybe, "I hate you." I couldn't tell.
"It's your choice, Mom," she'd said. "This is for you. If you're not ready to see him, he doesn't come." I'd thought about it for a long time. Let him come, but he doesn't get to pretend nothing happened. He doesn't get to act like we're just one big happy family. Now, watching the gate open and Dashiell walk through, I felt my stomach clench. He looked older, thinner, with gray streaking his hair that hadn't been there before. He carried a small gift bag. He saw me and stopped. We stared at each other across the yard. Then he walked over slowly, like he was approaching something fragile that might break. "Hi, Mom," Dashiell. "I brought something for the baby." He held out the gift bag. "I know I probably don't have the right to give gifts, but—" "You can give your nephew a gift," I said quietly. He nodded, still not meeting my eyes. "Mom, I've been going to therapy. Court mandated at first, but I kept going after. My therapist says I need to make amends, but that amends isn't just saying sorry. It's changing behavior and accepting consequences." "That's true. So I'm not going to ask you to forgive me. I don't deserve that. But I want you to know that I understand what I did. Not just the theft, the betrayal, the way I tried to make you think you were losing your mind, the way I used your love for me as a weapon. I understand that now, and I'm so, so sorry." I looked at my son, my firstborn, who'd made terrible choices and paid terrible prices, who'd hurt me in ways I was still healing from, who might never be someone I could fully trust again. "Okay," I said simply. "Okay? Okay, I hear you. I appreciate the apology. I'm glad you're working on yourself. But Dashiell, it's going to take time. A lot of time. Maybe years. Maybe forever. I can be civil to you at family gatherings. I can be polite. But I can't be the mother I was before. You killed that relationship when you decided to steal from me." His eyes filled with tears. I know I did, and I have to live with that." "Yes, you do," he nodded, wiping his eyes. Can I at least know you're okay, that you're happy?" I looked around the backyard, at Jennifer laughing with her husband, at Christopher flipping burgers, at my grandchildren playing, at this life I'd fought to keep, this independence I'd refused to surrender. Yes, I'm okay. I'm more than okay.
I'm happy. And I was, because at 72 years old, I was living life on my own terms, in my own home, making my own decisions. I had my dignity back. I had my freedom back. I had proven that being elderly didn't mean being helpless. Dashiell had tried to cut my expenses and take my life. Instead, I cut his criminal enterprise and saved myself. And that was the best revenge of all. Not just surviving, but thriving. Thank you for following my story to the end. If this resonated with you, please leave a comment about your own experiences with family challenges or how you'd handle a similar situation. And remember, you're never too old to stand up for yourself and demand the respect you deserve.
Outside the courthouse, reporters were waiting. Apparently, a story about a wealthy investment manager stealing from his elderly mother was newsworthy. Christopher shielded me from their cameras and questions, getting me to his car as quickly as possible. "What happens now?" I asked as we drove away. "Now we wait. Discovery, pretrial motions, maybe plea negotiations. If Dashiell is smart, he'll take a deal, plead guilty to reduce charges, agree to pay restitution, maybe get probation instead of prison time. And if he doesn't, then it goes to trial. You'll have to testify. It will be hard, Mom. His lawyer will try to make you look confused or vindictive, but with the evidence we have, he'll lose." 3 weeks later, I got a call from the prosecutor, a sharp woman named Linda Morrison. "Mrs. Westbrook, I wanted to inform you that Dashiell Westbrook has accepted a plea agreement." My heart started pounding. "What kind of agreement?" "He's pleading guilty to elder financial abuse and fraud. In exchange, we're dropping the identity theft and forgery charges. He'll serve 18 months in county jail, followed by 3 years of probation. He's required to pay full restitution, $18,340, within 6 months. He'll also lose his license to work in financial services permanently." 18 months. Not 10 years, but not nothing. He'd go to jail. He'd lose his career. He'd have a criminal record. "Mrs. Westbrook, are you okay with this agreement? You have the right to object if you think it's too lenient." "No," I said slowly. "No, it seems fair." "There's one more thing. Sienna Laurent has also agreed to plead guilty to being an accessory. She'll get probation and community service, but no jail time. She's also required to pay partial restitution." After I hung up, I sat in my living room and cried. Not tears of joy or victory, but tears of loss. My son was going to jail. My family was broken beyond repair. Yes, I had my money back. Yes, I had my freedom and my independence and my dignity, but I'd lost my firstborn child. Jennifer came over that evening and held me while I cried. "I know it hurts, Mom, but you did the right thing. You protected yourself. That matters." Does it? Because right now it just feels like I destroyed my family. Dashiell destroyed this family. You just refuse to be destroyed with it. 6 months later, I stood in my kitchen making coffee on a bright April morning. Through my window, I could see the balcony garden I'd already started planting. Tomatoes, herbs, maybe some peppers this year. Dashiell was 4 months into his sentence. Jennifer had visited him once in jail. She said he looked thin and tired, but that he'd asked her to tell me he was sorry. I hadn't visited. I wasn't ready for that. Maybe I never would be. The restitution money had been paid. Dashiell and Sienna had liquidated assets to cover it. My accounts were whole again. I'd changed banks, set up new security measures, and made Jennifer my power of attorney instead of any of my children individually. Christopher came by every Sunday for dinner. Jennifer called twice a week. I joined a new book club and started volunteering 3 days a week instead of 2. I'd even started dating a widower named Frank who I'd met at the community kitchen. Nothing serious, but it was nice to have someone to have coffee with. My condo was still my condo.
My life was still my life. I was still independent, still capable, still free. On Dashiell's birthday, his 37th, which he would spend in jail, I sat down and wrote him a letter. Not a long one, just a few words. Dashiell, you stole my money, but that's not what hurt the most. You tried to steal my dignity, my independence, my right to make my own decisions. You treated me like I was incompetent instead of the woman who raised you. I hope prison gives you time to think about what you did and why. I hope you come out of this a better man than you went in. I love you. I probably always will. But I don't trust you, and I'm not sure I ever will again. When you're ready to truly apologize, not because you got caught, but because you understand how you hurt me, I'll be here. Until then, I'm going to keep living my life on my own terms. Mom. I mailed the letter and walked back to my car, feeling the spring sunshine on my face. At 70 years old, I'd learned something important. You're never too old to stand up for yourself. Never too old to demand respect. Never too old to fight back when someone tries to take away your freedom. Dashiell had said he was cutting my expenses. What he'd really tried to do was cut my lifeline, my independence, my dignity, my right to live my own life. Instead, I'd cut his, and I'd saved myself. Epilogue. 2 years later. I stood in Jennifer's backyard watching my grandchildren chase each other through the sprinklers. Timothy was 8 now, Emma was 5, and Jennifer had just had another baby, a boy they'd named after my late husband, Bernard. Christopher was manning the grill, his own girlfriend beside him. She was nice, a public defender who shared his passion for justice. Dashiell had been released 6 months ago. He'd completed his sentence, including good behavior time. He lived in a small apartment across town and worked as a clerk in a hardware store, the only job he could get with his criminal record. He'd asked Jennifer if he could come to today's barbecue. She asked me,